In our last video, we looked at cross cancellation for multiplication of fractions. Today, we're going to look at cross cancellation for division of fractions. But as you already know, it's the same thing. However, we're going to review this concept just so you're good, so you're ready for middle school, because I know you're going to rock it. So let's get started. So, once again, to reiterate, the reason that we use cross cancellation is basically just to save ourselves a really big headache and a lot of work. And you're going to see what I'm talking about. So, say we have a problem. Well, let's review the cross cancellation using multiplication first, because multiplication is really easy. As you remember, when you multiply fractions, all you do is multiply straight across on the top and the bottom. So we've got 3/4 times 2/5. 3/4 times 2/5. And that's pretty terrible handwriting, but I've never claimed to have very good handwriting, so bear with me. Alright. So if this helps you, by all means do it. Write down the first few multiples of each number, if that helps you. But really, hopefully, you learn to recognize the multiples. So one of the more common ones that you'll see, unless you're dealing with mixed numbers, and even then it's pretty common, is 2. There will usually be a 2 somewhere in the problem. So, we know that 2 is a multiple of every even number. So, and cross cancellation is just a cross. So here and here. So we can't do anything with 3 and 5, because 3 isn't a multiple of 5 and 5 isn't a multiple of 3. But 2, I got that backwards. 4 is a multiple of 2. But if you want to consider it in another way, 2 is a factor of 4. So, what does that mean? Why does that matter? Well, here's why it matters, and here's what we're going to do. So, 2 goes into 4 2 times. So we're going to mark out this 4 and put a 2. And 2 goes into 2 1 time. So we're going to mark out that 2 and put a 1. Now, see what we have? We have 3 over 2 times 1 over 5. So, I'm sure you're asking yourself, Mr. Beatty, why is that important? Well, it's going to save you some time at the end of the problem. If you didn't do this, that's fine. If you're okay with simplifying at the end of the problem, then you don't have to do this. That's what this step is going to save you. This step is going to save you having to simplify at the end of the problem. So let's go ahead and see what we got. 3 times 1 is 3. And 2 times 5 is 10. So as you can see, we have an answer completely in its simplest form, and we didn't have to do 2 steps, even though we really did do 2 steps. So that's multiplication, just to refresh your memory. Now we're going to move into division. So to refresh your memory about division, how do we divide? Keep, change, flip. Yeah, that's the action. Everybody's going to know how we're dividing fractions. Yeah. So we keep, change, flip. So let's look at a couple of basic fractions first. We've got 1/3 divided by 5/6. Alright. Now the reason I did 5/6 is because I want to use this as an example of what this video is about, which is cross cancellation. So 1/3 divided by 5/6. So we've got our original problem. Now, how do we divide fractions? What's the action? Keep, change, flip. That's the action. So we keep 1/3, keep the first fraction, change the division sign to the opposite, which is multiplication, and flip 5/6 into 6/5. So now, this is the problem that we have. 1/3 times 6/5. Now here comes your cross cancellation. So we look at each number across from each other. And when I say across, I mean this way and this way. So we look at 5 and 1. Well, 1 is a multiple of 5 because 1's a multiple of everything. Or rather, 1's a factor of 5 because 1's a factor of everything. However, if we do 5 divided by 1, we're not really helping ourselves. So we can't really do anything there. Now 3 is a factor of 6. So we say to ourselves, self, how many times is 3 going to 6? 3 times what is 6? 3 times 2 is 6. So we cross out the 6 and put a 2. How many times is 3 going to 3? 1. Now we've got a really simple problem and we just multiply straight across. And actually we've got a really simple problem because our 1/3 became 1/1, which, as we all know, is just 1. But just to keep with the process, let's do it straight across. 1 times 2 is 2, and 1 times 5 is 5. So our final answer, you could say to 1/3 times 6/5, 6/5 or 6/5 is 2/5. But what I would say, go back to your original problem. 1/3 divided by 5/6 is 2/5. So that's the easiest way to do that. Now, sometimes you'll see division of fractions in other forms, but fractions, well, division, take several different forms. Sorry, guys, I have a parent calling me, or trying to call me. So, let's do another one of those. But let's do a little bit bigger numbers this time. 3/4 divided by 7 twelfths. Alright. This is gonna be a fun one. 3/4 divided by 7 twelfths. So, if you remember, when we divide fractions, what do? Because that's the action. We keep, change, flip, because that's the action. Everybody knows how we divide fractions. So, we keep 3/4, 3/4. We change the division to multiplication, because that's the opposite. And we flip 7/12 to become 12/7. Now, this is our new problem. The multiplication problem at the bottom. And, this is actually a pretty good example of when to use cross cancellation. So we look at both numbers across from each other. Remember, across this way. And we say, well, is 3 a factor of 7? No. Because 7's a prime number. Which means that the only factors of 7 are 1 and 7. So, now we look at the other way. We say, is 4 a factor of 12? And it is. 4 times what equals 12? 4 times 3 equals 12. So 12 divided by 4 equals 3. So that 12 becomes a 3. And 4 divided by 4 equals 1. So that 4 becomes a 1. Now, a lot of people say this. They say the 4 becomes 1. It's just a rule. But I'm going to tell you the 4 becomes a 1 because you divide 4 by the greatest common factor, which is 4. That's why the 4 becomes a 1. Now, here's the resulting problem. 3/1 times 3/7. Alright, so now we just got a basic multiplication problem. So we're going to multiply straight across. 3 times 3 is 9. And 1 times 7 is 7. Alright, now, if you keep it like that, we've done what we need to do. But that's not entirely correct. So in order to make it entirely correct, and in order to go for that complete grade, we're going to make this improper fraction into a mixed number. And how are we going to do that? So we're going to put 7 outside the house and 9 inside the house. So how many times does 7 go into 9? 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. 14 is too big, so it only goes one time. And 1 times 7 is 7. So when we subtract, we have 2 left over. Now that 2 goes up here above the 7. So we have 1 and 2 7s. So that is our final answer. Now, in order to say this correctly, if you had a word problem, or if you had to explain it, if somebody came up to you on the street and said, "Hey buddy, what's 3/4 divided by 7/12?" You could say, what could you say? I'm sorry, it's way at the bottom. 1 and 2 7s. And you will sound like a genius. Now that probably won't happen to you. But if it does, then maybe they'll give you a piece of candy. Alright guys, so we're going to talk about more cross cancellation next time, because this video took longer than I thought, but I had fun. I'm a math nerd, so hopefully you become a math nerd too, because it's a good way to be, I think. So until next time guys, peace.